Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Ryan here from Game Essays, giving my unscripted rough thoughts on what we saw today in the Tears of the Kingdom gameplay demonstration. Right out of the gate, I just want to say that those who are hoping for a very different style of gameplay than Breath of the Wild, you're probably going to be disappointed. The gameplay loop, based on what we saw, looks very, very similar to Breath of the Wild, but we will have new abilities, new areas to explore, areas to re-explore, that I think recontextualize a lot of the world. So for that, I'm very excited. But if you didn't like breakable weapons, things like that, you're probably not gonna like Tears of the Kingdom because it looks like a lot of that stuff is returning. Right away, we saw a tree branch break very quickly, so hey, we know that system is very much still in place. But the coolest thing I think in this trailer was that we know our 4 core abilities: Recall, Fuse, Ultra Hand, and Ascend. And these are the abilities that I think will be the equivalent to the 4 abilities that we had in Breath of the Wild. Now, these abilities, I think, spawn creativity in a totally new way. We had a lot of great conversations with friends when we played Breath of the Wild. You'd complete a shrine, you'd talk to your friend about it, and realize they solved the shrine in a unique way that maybe you didn't think of, or vice versa. And I think the systems here with weapon crafting, vehicle crafting, there is a lot you can do. Rewinding time, ascending through ceilings, there is a lot of creativity that's going to come from this, and people are going to find such unique ways to solve the objectives, the puzzles, whatever you want to call it, in Tears of the Kingdom. And I think it's going to create a whole new social aspect of this game. It's a way to take what we had in Breath of the Wild and expand that even further, and also a way to make the world of Breath of the Wild that we've already explored interesting again, because there's going to be so many new things we can do. An interesting thing that I did notice was that they didn't show Link actually switching between his abilities. They didn't show like the menu screen or anything, or what you do when you switch. It was always a cutaway and Link had the other ability equipped. So I do wonder if there are other abilities that they just don't want to show right now, or they didn't want to show the empty slots of potential abilities later, something like that. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that they didn't show that. Another thing that I really liked is seeing how much you can use objects that you have on hand to your advantage. We saw how the homing arrow was demonstrated by using a Kisai, or you could also use the frost chew jelly to make a frost arrow. So what I really like about this is there is a whole new reason to want to farm or take down enemies. There's a reason to want to raid an enemy camp more because you want to get either the blades that are on their heads now, or you want to get the other resources to use for things like arrows. Before, I didn't really use the monster parts too much, so I think having an extra element, an extra reason to want to get materials from these enemies makes exploring that much better. I also think this crafting system makes the open world less empty, because people talk about games like Skyrim where, you know, it's a big open world, but aside from fighting enemies and looting stuff, how much can you actually interact with that world? And Breath of the Wild, with climbing and things, made an open world interactive, but only to a certain extent. Now, with what you can do with all these objects, there's a reason to explore everywhere. Even areas that don't have treasure might have interesting things that you can craft and put together and build. So it just recontextualizes the world in a totally different way. It is a little weird that you just have these mechanical fans just chilling, just hanging out. That is a little convenient, I will say, and I'm sure we will see some of that. But even using things like logs, whatever, to build stuff is really cool, and you'll want to use all the objects that are scattered all over Hyrule in these sky islands everywhere. So I have no doubt that the gameplay is going to be fun. The building with Ultra Hand is also super seamless, along with the weapon crafting fusing. You know, people compared this game to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts because of the crafting, but they made the crafting way more seamless. In Banjo-Kazooie, you had to go to a separate screen, like a separate build mode. This is very seamless with how you can quickly make a boat, as Aonuma displayed. Another interesting thing I noticed was the apple on the UI, which was above the shield and sword, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Sheikah Slate used to be that up on the D-pad, and now it's food. And I'm curious if that is the new system for eating food, and maybe they changed the combat so that you can't just pause and eat as much as you want. I'm hoping that's the case. Now, we also saw that when Link was using the homing arrow when he wanted to equip the Key's Eye, he did press up on the D-pad while he had an arrow out, while he had his bow drawn, which could also mean that the up on the D-pad, even though the symbol is an apple, it could just be a way to get to objects in your inventory, like all objects in your inventory, and it still may freeze time and you can still eat a ton or something. I don't know if there's going to be any limitations, but I'm interested to see that. Another one of my random thoughts is that I think the Sky Islands will be the shrine equivalents. Now, the island that we actually saw most of the gameplay on is likely the Great Plateau of Tears of the Kingdom, but the first Sky Island we went to, I thought it was curious how we saw Link ride the object into the sky and then drift onto the Sky Island, and then they kind of cut away. It was a very small island, and based on the previous trailer where we saw kind of the gyroscope object thing, the motion control thing that we normally use, that kind of puzzle on a Sky Island, and then the fact that they didn't really show the smaller Sky Islands tells me that the other Sky Islands are probably shrine equivalents. And I think similar to how we used to have the little tracker to find a shrine, that now the new thing is when we see one of those rocks fall from the sky while we're on the surface, it will be like a new little thing where we have to hunt it down, kind of like how we used to hunt down the falling stars, the star shards or whatever, or comet shards, I forget what they're called. So you have to kind of chase it down and figure out where it landed, and then that's kind of your reward, is being able to go up to the Sky Island and do whatever's on there. I will say so far, I'm really excited for Tears of the Kingdom. This may be the last thing we see before the game comes out, but I'm very impressed. There's still so much we don't know. We don't know whether dungeons will make an appearance. We don't know what these malice holes are. We don't know how much the underground exists. We don't know the story. There's so much we don't know, but I can tell you that the core gameplay to me looks extremely exciting and really is just going to bring out everyone's imagination. But please, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to have a ton of Tears of the Kingdom content, including a content marathon, midnight release stream. Join the Discord if you want to join the everyday conversation, and I'll be back with more Zelda content. Thanks, guys.